Hello, everybody. I'm Silva Harapetian. This is a special episode in partnership with Nerouj, a professional organization of the Western Diocese of the Armenian Church. This episode, we're going to be talking to Alex Balekian, who's running for the 30th Congressional District right here in California. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I should ask you the very first question is, do you ever sleep, sir?
I would like to. I never get enough sleep as I want to, but lately between work and this campaign, the sleep has been a rare commodity. Yes.
Now, I should tell our viewers why we're asking this question, because you are a doctor with a full practice.
Correct.
You are married.
Mm-hmm.
So you have personal life, and you also have been running a campaign since May of 2023?
Correct.
Nonstop. How does that, why get involved? Why put yourself and turn your life upside down to get involved in a race that may or may not actually work out with you? Because predominantly, looking at the numbers and looking on paper, the chips are stacked against you.
Correct. So just for people who don't know, the district that I'm running is California's 30th district. It includes the entirety of Glendale, Burbank, Sunland, Tujunga, Hollywood, and West Hollywood, and a small bit of Pasadena. It is currently represented by Adam Schiff, who after 22 years is moving and trying to go to Senate in Dianne Feinstein's old seat. So when there is no incumbent, it's anybody's race. So that is why when the opportunity presented itself in May of 2023, I said, I'm going to participate. Now, why am I participating? As you said, I am a practicing physician. I work in the intensive care unit. I save lives for a living, and I'm running because we need better public safety. We need better public safety from a standpoint of homelessness, from a standpoint of unprosecuted crimes, from a standpoint of drug use, but also from a personal, cultural level. This district is the largest Armenian district of any of the 435 congressional districts in the United States. We have no Armenian representation in Congress. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan is trying to buy Congressman Henry Cuellar from Texas for $500,000. So I said, this is a unique opportunity. It's the once-in-a-generation opportunity that we've had to have an Armenian representing the largest Armenian district in Congress, and that's also a big reason why I'm running.
You know, we would all agree with you that we need public safety. We all see the challenges that we face, everything from inflation to homelessness to safety, like you mentioned, and education. But not everybody would kind of pick up the baton and say, you know what, I think I'm going to take this on, because it is really not an easy task, particularly during the primary where you were running against all Democrats, right? Yeah. And there was, 12, 15 of them, 16 of them?
There were 16 people
16
total,
people
yes.
total, yeah. So that element of personal responsibility for this to have been on your shoulders, where did that come from?
I grew up in an immigrant household, same as you grew up in an immigrant household. And I tell people, my father, who was born and raised in Iraq, when he was 40 years old, had to leave the country with a pregnant wife, with a 3-year-old daughter, when Saddam and the Baathists came into power, and he hit the reset button. And he hit the reset button and came to this country, but then managed to reinvent himself, managed to build everything back up. And so I grew up in a household that said, the harder you work, the more you'll make of yourself. And you are responsible for your own actions. You are responsible for your own destiny. And so that idea of self-reliance, personal responsibility was there always. You didn't get an allowance. What did you do to deserve the allowance? Those kinds of things. And, I said, I'm capable. I'm hardworking. The intensive care unit, thankfully, is an exhausting job. So this campaign, by comparison, it's not hard. It's time consuming, but it's not hard. We've met so many people and we've been able to energize each other. So I didn't do this entirely by myself. I had a lot of help. We had a lot of concerned parents from Glendale Unified, for example, who had started about the charge with, their children's test scores and whatnot being lower than they wanted to. And so that kind of snowballed into, okay, look, we have identified a problem. The problem being low test scores in schools, the problem being public safety, the problem being cost of living being too high. And if you think about it, that transcends party affiliation, ethnic background. We all want public safety. We all want quality for our kids. And so that is one way that we've kind of together been able to achieve this. So yes, I am in front taking the daggers because in addition to this being an uphill battle, there have been a lot of people who have said some not so nice things about us and have actively tried to subvert our efforts. So I'm out front taking the daggers, but we definitely have a lot of people behind us supporting us. So it's been a team effort. It's been a village effort.
When you say us, who do you mean us?
Us meaning essentially the three people that we started with. So me, my husband, and our campaign manager.
Okay.
My husband is a marketing director, so I'm very lucky having somebody who makes me look good, who's doing the branding. And for the professionals out there who know, branding is everything.
It is everything. If you didn't know, branding is everything.
But brand recognition is everything. So I've been lucky that he's been there helping to build the brand. And then our campaign manager came on because she said, "Oh, this looks good." And then just slowly it's been building up from professionals, people who have jobs, people who have families, but have said, wow, this is something that energizes me. This is something that gives me hope. So I'm going to join up. So we don't have any fully dedicated members of our campaign staff. It's a bunch of people with day jobs who are doing this on the side. So we're just kind of this, the little rascals.
Yeah. I want to touch on a lot of things that you already mentioned, but I want to go deeper on them. But before we do that, I want to highlight the importance of this position. This position was held by Adam Schiff. This is a significant position. It's a federal position. So can we do like a little mini lesson of the significance of why you at home should care and get to the polls and to vote for your candidate? Because the decisions that are made in this position really do trickle down and impact our lives.
Right. So the three basic levels are federal level in Washington, D.C., state level in Sacramento, and I'll say local level, either the county or else, city council, Glendale, Burbank, what have you. Each individual level has different responsibilities, and you're right, it does trickle down. So from the federal level where I'm going, these are more interfacing with different countries, but also setting the pace for the country domestically. The first part about different countries. A lot of people say, why didn't America step in? Why didn't anybody step in to help the Armenians in Artsakh? Why, do we help other countries? Why have we stepped in for Ukraine, but we haven't stepped in to help the Armenians? And so that is how somebody from Congress is going to be able to help out. There's one way is to write letters to admonish and to censure things. And another way is, okay, if we are $35 trillion in debt and I can't convince the rest of the country to fund Armenia and its military, what I can do is say, look, we're $35 trillion in debt. Do we really need to be giving F-16 fighter jets and $120 million to Turkey, who, even though they're a NATO member, has spoken ill against us and has threatened to attack us, for example? Do we really need to be sending weapons and military cooperation to Azerbaijan? So as the only member, only Armenian member in Congress, I could make huge strides for Armenia, not by arming her, but by disarming her enemies, which we are currently doing. So that is one huge immediate way that I could do that, is be the leading charge and say, okay, who are our allies? Are Turkey and Azerbaijan necessarily our allies? And should we be giving them this aid? I would prefer to say, let's cut it. And then once they have no American dollars, our tax dollars going to them, that will then certainly change their tune and bring them to the negotiating table for long-lasting peace.
You're a Republican, you're running as a Republican. I would venture a guess that your fellow Republicans are probably not going to agree with that.
So as a correction, so number one, I am a Deukmejian Republican.
Okay.
So I tell people, and you do this too, right? You couldn't be Armenian in California in the 80s and not follow your Uncle George, who was running the states. So it was difficult to be Armenian and not be a Deukmejian Republican. Number two, I have been very vocal that I've been a disenfranchised Republican at least since 2000. My party of law and order, my party of budget responsibility, became the Bush-Cheney party of invading countries, of running up the national debt because we've opened several theaters of war at the same time. In 2012, for the first time, I went to Istanbul, where my mother was born and raised, and I visited her old neighborhood, and I saw the old house where she grew up. Because of the invasions of Iraq in 2000 and all the destruction that's been sown, I never had that opportunity to go with my father to Baghdad, to the street where he grew up, to see the house where he grew up. So since 2000, I've definitely been a disenfranchised Republican, and I despise the two-party system because the first thing that people talk about is the D or the R. 80% of us, we are the moderate middle. Doesn't matter if you're DNR, we want public safety. We want quality education. We want lower cost of living. But the first thing this two-party system has done to us is ask, Silva, are you a D or an R? Boom. 80% turns to 40%, which is more manageable to conquer.
At the end of the day, again, perhaps not in all of ideology, but by name, you would be joining the Republicans, right, on the federal level. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, it's not just about the Republicans, but also Democrats. Mm-hmm. You would have to work with both of them.
Correct.
How do you think, with your perspective and your ideas and the fact that you are a moderate Republican, mm-hmm. how do you think you would be able to accomplish some of the things that you've outlined to do?
So I am not a politician. So what does that mean? I don't have a poker face. I don't have this way of saying something and kind of meaning something else. I'm very explicit. So everything that I've listed on my campaign website is explicitly there, and I've laid bare very extensively what I think and how I would vote. My number one issue as a single issue voter is a balanced budget. I don't care if it's a Republican budget or a Democrat budget. If it's a deficit budget, it's spending more than it takes in, I'm voting no. I am absolutely against Donald Trump and the Republicans in 2017 raising the debt ceiling. No. Do you raise your own debt ceiling at home? Do I raise my own debt ceiling?
I think my creditors would have something to say about that.
Exactly. So we run our own house on a budget.
Right.
Why should our government be any different? And the fact that we've not been running it on a budget, the fact that we've run up a $35 trillion debt, what happens to your credit score when you have all these maxed out credit cards? It goes down. What happens to the interest rate that you can get when you're going to buy a car when your credit score is terrible? They give you a higher interest rate because you're risky. That's exactly what has happened with inflation. So we need an adult in the room. We need somebody who is fiscally responsible, right? And I, as a small business owner, I run my business on a budget. And if I don't, I'm out of business. So that is a nonpartisan red line, is I don't care whose budget it is. If you're spending more than you're taking in, I'm voting no. The other beauty is, how much help have we gotten from Trump and the Republicans and the national Republican committees? Zero. So what do I owe them? Zero. When I get there, whose actions will have gotten me there? District 30, my people's actions, my neighbors' actions. Who will I have allegiance towards?
Are you
them.
saying you have no Republican support here in this race?
So that the county GOP has supported me because we proved ourselves. But as far as monetary support, absolutely nothing.
Why do you think that is?
Because they see this seat as, it's a done deal. So
because predominantly the district is Republican and Democrat and has been voting Democrat.
Correct.
Okay.
But what they don't see is they have been voting Democrat because the Republican Party has driven them away. People want law and order. People want safety. People want lower taxes and balanced budgets. They don't want the government to tell them what to do with their pregnancy. They don't want the government to tell gay people not to get married. And I agree. And why? Because I'm from here, right? So we have typical immigrant values. So the ultimate unit of governance is the household. And how you want to manage your household should be up to you. So long as you're a law-abiding citizen and a respectful neighbor, how you manage your household should be up to you. And the government shouldn't tell you what to do. And I would venture to say that is a very common immigrant mentality, is this is my house. Don't tell me what to do in my own house. And that is how I will govern. And that is, again, how my Uncle George Deukmejian, your Uncle George Deukmejian, governed. He kept the streets safe and clean, stay out of my bank account, stay out of my personal life.
You talked about we talked about the difference between local and federal.
Yes.
And on a federal level, you do have a lot of interaction with what happens in countries and a lot of say in those things. You talk about public safety, you talk about education, you talk about fiscal responsibility. Can you talk about how being in that federal position, all of that trickles down to the local level and how that impacts, for example, people who are concerned about homelessness,
Yes.
people who are concerned about inflation? How does that happen?
So as far as inflation, okay, it's if we manage our money better. So right now, what happens with inflation? You have too many dollars and too few products. So if your productivity of your factories and things isn't increasing, but you have a lot of dollars that you've printed and put in there, then you're going to have more dollars required to buy each individual product. The way that you're going to improve the economy and cool inflation is by improving people's productivity, making it easier for people to start small businesses. I tell people 20 years ago, 54% of the country worked for a small business. That's either working for somebody with fewer than 100 employees or you work for yourself, like I do. Okay, I would be a small business employee because I work for me. Now that number is 44%. So only a minority of people work for a small business. The American dream that is no longer within reach for people, that is because we have made it more difficult for individuals to start small businesses and hire intimately within their community. And we've made it easier for larger corporations with their lobbyists, with their insider information in Congress to make terms easier for them to operate. I mean, look at the Amazons and the Walmarts and the Targets. You don't have any more mom and pop gift shops anymore because people are going there. The shutdown, that really affected a lot of people. I don't blame people for shutting down for 3 months in the start of the shutdown. We didn't know what was going on. I would have done the same. But after 3 months or 4 months, did we need to keep the businesses shut down? You know, mom and pop gift shop didn't have an internet presence like Amazon and Target did. It was still business as usual for them. But then you ended up hurting, the little guy from those actions. So those are some trickle down things that I would do is, again, budget responsibly, try to remove any federal red tape that was, again, meant to penalize corporations, but then they, with their lawyers and their accountants, found the loopholes to go through. But you and I, small business owner, we don't, I'm my own accountant. I run my own books. So trying to take it back to where small businesses are able to open and innovate, that trickle down will definitely come to the individual communities. As far as homelessness, that is a federal issue. 40% of California homeless, 70 of our 170,000 homeless are from out of state. Their families, their support systems are out of state. So the number one predictor of sobriety, because a lot of this is mental illness and also drug use, the number one predictor of having your mental illness under control, having your drug addiction under control, is having family support. These tent cities, that's not family support. So we need to ask these people, where did you go to high school? Where is your family? Reunite them with their family. You need a federal level program that's going to transport people across state lines. Reunite them with their families. Give money to their home states so that they can get rehab facilities, rehab beds there. And that is how I would fix the local homelessness problem from Congress. Finally, the drugs. Where are the drugs coming from? 3 weeks ago, we had a seizure of 5,000 pounds of crystal meth disguised as watermelons coming in from Mexico. We know that the precursors for fentanyl that the Chinese make and ship here are being assembled in Mexico and then brought in. We need strong border security. California itself isn't going to secure the Arizona or Texas or New Mexico border. So we need stronger federal policy. We need to fund Customs and Border Protection to intercept those drug shipments. And this is not just homeless people. In 2022, 3 high school students every day, on average, were dying because they were taking pills that they thought were prescription pills, but were counterfeit pills laced with fentanyl. So they were unintentionally overdosing 3 high school students a day, 21 kids, a classroom every week of high schoolers was dying because of the fentanyl coming in from Mexico. So those are all federal issues, and that is how my actions in Washington will affect public safety locally.
How confident are you in this race? Because I looked at the numbers.
Yeah.
And on paper, one would say you did not have a chance at all during the primary.
That is correct.
Talk to me about that.
Alex Balekian for Congress was on nobody's bingo card in March 2024. We were on
Right.
nobody's bingo card. And I loved it because, I am a proud math and science geek. I love numbers. I love crunching numbers. And before I even set off into doing this, I looked at the district. I looked at the prior election results and I said, okay, what's my plan? Do I have a realistic plan? And I said, okay, 18% of the vote. I'll get 18% of the vote and I'll advance. We got 17.5% of the vote. So my numbers were very close. Yeah, right on point. So we absolutely have a path. It's a narrow path. And I'm going to look at your audience right now. If we get a normal turnout from Armenians, when I say normal, 70% turnout is predicted for a presidential race, on a general election race on a presidential year. But only 50% of Armenians are projected to vote. So if 70% of Armenians in the district vote, absolutely we will win. Absolutely. It won't be just the Armenians because they're 15%, but for the votes that I need to win, Armenians are a third of that. So they will make or break this election. And that is why we're trying aggressively to get the word out with Armenians and also do ballot harvesting.
Talk to me about the voter turnout, because that is something that is an issue within the Armenian community for a variety of reasons.
Right.
And I'd love to kind of unpack that with you.
Excellent question. So there's a lot of reason for the low voter turnout for Armenians. One of them is simply that they don't care. Actually, let's start with they don't know. There are a lot of people both born here and also born elsewhere. They've been naturalized citizens who say, oh, where can I vote for you online? So we need to educate them about the process. So the education, I'm going to look at the audience and say this. Everybody in California will get a mail-in ballot starting October 5. And everybody has 30 days to submit that mail-in ballot. You can fill it in at home, put it right back in the envelope, give it right back to your postal worker, and that person will deliver it back. So it's easy because everybody gets it. Even if you mistakenly throw away your ballot, you can still request a replacement ballot. You can go in person to vote, not just November 5th. Early polling stations are open 10 days, up to 10 days prior. So I guess starting October 25 or 26, people can go and beat the lines and vote. So that's one thing, is a lack of knowledge about the process. Number two is a mistrust of the process. There are a lot of Armenians from the Soviet Union who say it's all rigged anyway. What I vote doesn't matter. One thing that I learned that I was shocked at is there is a belief that people know, or the government knows, how you voted. And if you end up voting for the person who doesn't win, then the winning team will come after you and punish you. I was shocked when I heard that. And so I'm trying to get the word out to people that we know whether you turned in your ballot, yes or no, but I don't know how you voted, because it's not like they say, oh, this household voted this way. They aggregate all the votes over a 5,000 person precinct. And we know that these 5,000 people, this is how they voted, but I don't know how each individual votes. So it's that lack of knowledge, it's the mistrust in government, and then finally it's apathy. Either saying my one vote in a district of 500,000 isn't going to matter, or it's saying, it doesn't matter because, this is more important, no matter if it's Republican or Democrat, what is it? Two feces in the same toilet bowl, right? Two pieces of feces in the same toilet bowl. So I completely agree, because if you look, and this is why I want to be that different person. If you look at the lobbyists, yes, you have the gun lobbyists that give to the Republicans, and you have the abortion that gives to Democrats. But finance, the banking sector, pharma, the weapons manufacturers, if you look, it is an even 50-50 split. They give evenly to the Republicans, evenly to the Democrats. Why? Because the weapons manufacturers want to make sure that the wars go on and the weapons get sold, no matter who's in power.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to...
It's the pushing of the agenda rather than the who delivers the agenda.
Exactly. And what I say is, they say, well, Alex, what if they try to push you around in Washington? What if they say you should do this, or else we're not going to support, your reelection? Number one, they didn't support my first election. Number two, I have a day job. You want to get rid of me from Congress? Go for it. I am not dependent upon this job in Congress. I am doing this because we need better public safety, we need Armenian representation in Congress, and we need a moderate person who is from the community, who is not this career politician who's hanging out with the lobbyists, who's actually going to do work for us.
I mean, I've been a reporter for 25 years. I have spoken to a lot of candidates who have this idea, and theoretically, we all speak about what we want to do, but wanting to do it and then getting into the position and having to face all of these challenges and the pushbacks is a completely different story, right?
Yeah,
so how and what characteristics or strengths do you think you have to help you stand up to that?
Identity politics is big on the Democratic side, not so big on the Republican side. What I tell people is, can you imagine what will happen when a non-politician, physician, son of immigrants, gay Republican takes this seat that everybody says is going to be safely Democrat? Can you imagine what Glendale, Burbank, Sunland, Tujunga, we will be overnight news. Everybody will be saying, look at what this community did. This community defied all the odds and elected somebody that nobody thought they would elect. Why? Because it just tells you how nobody has their finger on our pulse. Washington, D.C., Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, that is a distraction, right? We have homelessness on our sidewalks. We have crimes in our homes, in our businesses. People want that fixed. Nobody's talking about that. And so when somebody like me gets elected, we will be an overnight news sensation. And luckily, my husband is a marketing director, so he knows how to kind of harness social media. I mean, we went from 0 followers to almost 10,000 followers now in a little over a year. Why? Because we've been able to harness social media. So using those, I tell people, Alexandra Osorio-Cortez, AOC, she's one person out of 435, but she has been so shrewd at using social media to her advantage. We will do the same thing. And people will say, so she's from Brooklyn, right? People say, oh my God, look at Glendale, look at Burbank, look at Sunland, Tujunga, look at what they did. They elected somebody from them. And then it's just going to ripple outwards. And then all these other communities said, hang on, if they can do it, we can do it. And then this ripple effect is going to happen.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
But that didn't answer my question.
Okay.
So what about you and your characteristics and your that makes you feel confident that when you do end up in the position that it won't be, you won't be one to be pushed around?
I'm a physician. This is not an existential crisis for me, not having this seat. So when I go there, I'm going there with an agenda. I'm going there with a mandate from my people. That mandate is public safety. That mandate is balanced budgets. That mandate is treating people, our international allies, as friends, as how they have parallels to our Constitution, rather than which country has natural resources that I can exploit. For example, Azerbaijan. And which country are, our friends, but they have nothing to exploit, so we're not really going to give them any importance, like Armenia. So those specific details that I've put in on my platform, again, balanced budget, term limits, public safety, I will be going there with a mandate. And if they say, you know what, we're just going to chew you up and spit you out, and if they do end up spitting me out because I don't get re-election, for example, because they somehow sabotage me, that's fine, because at the end of the day, I have my reputation and I have my conscience, and I'm going to be true to both. My priority is not having a mid-career change where I'm going to be a politician for the next 20 years. My priority is taking these ideas to Congress and getting them passed. And if they give me resistance, and if they subvert me, and if they get somebody else elected, you know what? We tried to fight the fight, and then I'm just going to go back to being a physician.
How has this impacted your perspective of the district? Because I imagine it can't be easy to say what you say, which is, I'm a Republican with a husband and a physician.
Yep.
And, all of these things sort of go against the grain of the conservative outlook and values. How has this impacted you at all? Or have you experienced anything that has surprised you?
The values that I carry are not the values of a party. They are the values of my family, of my household, how I grew up. And I would venture to say that it's not just Armenian households that grow up this way. It's Korean households. It's Mexican households, Salvadoran households. And it's also, white bread American households. So I don't carry the value system of a party. I carry the value system that my parents instilled in me. And that was number one, home and family. Number two, work hard at school so that number three, you can make something of yourself. You can build the American dream and you can have a life that your parents can be proud, like, oh, look at the life my kids have. That is my value system. I don't care if you call it Republican, Democrat, conservative, independent, whatever you want to call it. That is my value system. That is never going to change. So when I go to people, and again, I dislike the two-party system. I dislike that game, but I have to play that game if I'm going to reinvent everything, right? It's a means to an end. So the R next to my name, it's a means to an end. The end being, look, people are sick of this. And I've spoken to Democrats. I have to disarm them. So if I know that I'm speaking to a Democrat, very quickly I will talk about my husband and our cat and how I'm pro-choice. Okay, very quickly I will talk about that because I need to disarm them. But what do I really care about? I care about public safety. I care about cleaning up the homeless. I care about fiscal responsibility, but I have to put that front and center to disarm them because we have unfortunately been preconditioned to shut off anytime we see the R or the D, and that's not our letter. But what I've noticed is people are willing to listen. I just have to talk a little bit more to get them, to get my foot in the door. But everybody has the same concerns. They don't feel safe. Everything's expensive. And for the last 20 years, California has steadily declined. Everybody's thinking the same thing.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Anything that I'd like to add, we are completely grassroots. So people who are watching, we would like volunteers. There's just over 50 days left. We need people to call our other Armenians and say, look, our boy is running for Congress and we need to get the entire village together. This is the first time in 22 years the seat's been open. I am proof positive that a nobody can be somebody and win this race. And we've never had an Armenian in this seat. And it's not going to be another 20 years until we get that opportunity. So this truly is a now or never situation. And that's just what I would like people to know.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to something that we already talked about, but it is important because I've heard so many people say, including people in my family, that why would I vote? It doesn't matter. It doesn't count anyway. Talk to me about the significance and importance of voting and that the fact that there is still time to vote. Mm-hmm. And we're going to give out some information so that you know where to look up and how to vote, how to register, and what to do.
Yeah, I always like to say that 100% of Armenians complain, but only 20% vote. So being an armchair activist is great. Commenting on social media, retweeting things is great, but where the rubber meets the road is if people vote. That determines where tax dollars go. That determines extra police officers that are being hired. So there are resources online, and we encourage people to access them so that they can register and learn how to vote.
So when we talk about resources, we're talking about you being able to find out where your precinct is, well, you needing to change your address, you needing to register to vote, and needing more information about how to vote, right? So the California Secretary of State's office has all of that information on a page. The address is on the bottom of the screen. You can go click on it and find out all of the information you need in figuring out where to vote, how to vote, where your precinct is, and what you need to do in order to cast your ballot. As always, thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you for talking to us. I'm going to ask you one more question.
Please.
Is there anything else that you want the voters to know before they get to the ballot?
I just want voters to know that the power is in our hands. Yes, life might be busy, but if there's anything that you're unhappy about, really, the way that we make that change happen is by voting. So please, for yourself, for your family, for your culture, and just for future generations, please make it a point to participate in your civic duty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This has been a conversation with Alex Balekian. We have reached out to his opponent, Laura Friedman. As of recording of this episode, we have not heard back yet. I'm Silva Harapetian. See you next time.